to the worship of Him alone and none else. Now,
Barakallahu fikum. As you have already heard, I'm not alone in the studio. I'm with Brother Sekaliman. Today, we are going to look at the miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His creation, and this time we are turning to the aspect of human body immunity. Just like any country, this is something an analogy I would use, that it usually invests so much in its defense system world over. And the case in Uganda, this is where we put most of our money, and most of the countries are doing the same almost. So we should be able to look at the defense mechanism of the body. So what Allah has put as the defense mechanism for the body. So technically it is what we call the immune system. Yes, talking about the immune system, to a lay person maybe like me, I would wish to digest it further beyond the English word. When we talk about the immune system of the body, what are we essentially talking about? What is it in the layman's language, Brother Second?
in very simple language, the immune system is simply the collection of organs, cells. The cells are those blocks that form our bodies, and proteins. Proteins are essentially chemicals within our bodies that do the work of defending the body from things that are harmful to it. So anything that would come and it would cause harm, meaning it would make the body operate in an abnormal way, and therefore it fails to perform its function, they are within the body. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a number of things that help to prevent that from happening, and it's what we call the immune system. And it's a very complex system, and indeed we can say it is one of the miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Well, Barakallahu fikum, at least to a lay person like me, you've heard from the gurus of science that it is a system. And when we talk about a system, we essentially are talking about a multi-layer, multi-organ thing, kind of system that in a combination will do as something, a task, but it cannot be done by maybe something that is isolated. So a system means one kind of aspect has to support the other. Yes. So I think we need to go directly deep into looking at what really constitutes this kind of immune system of the body, because just like we said, it should be having a number of things, so it cannot be one. Yes, Brother Hamza.
All right, what other than Ayub, before we proceed, I think we need to provide the Islamic philosophical underpinning for why we are selecting these particular things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered us in Surah Al-Dhariyat to look at ourselves. He says, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. So that verse there means don't even look at the skies or other complex animals. Simply look at yourself. Meaning even when you are in isolation and you're only looking at yourself as a person, you should be able to witness the miracles and the signs of Allah even within your body. So that's why we need to study some of these things with the perspective not of merely talking of it from the theistic scientific notion, but looking at it as these are all signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He has put in our bodies. The body could have worked in a lot of other ways, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have protected us by merely an order, kun, fayakun, but He has designed all these mechanisms in our body as a sign for us to think and contemplate and say, subhanallah, this is really something that has been done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this system that we are calling the immune system is a defense system. Just like you see countries have armies, and the army purpose is essentially to prevent outsiders from coming and causing chaos within that particular country. So you can see that many countries spend a lot of money in that area of defense, because it's a very critical part of any organism, be it a country or a human being. Now we have seen that you have a collection, just like in the army you have the air force, you have the vehicles, you have the engineers, you have the doctors. It does not work just by guns alone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for us some organs that are specialized, particularly to help us, protect us from these harmful elements of the world in which we live. Then there are also special cells, the blocks that build our bodies. On the screen we have that graphic. Essentially it is showing us the various components that form our immune system. As you can see, in this case they are mentioning largely the organs. So when we talk of organs that form the defense system, you have that mucosa, thymus. Now those are biological terms which you may not want to go too much into. For us, what we need to understand is that within your body, as has been labeled, there are various parts that join together to make sure that your body does not fail to function and it continues to operate even if you are under attack from some negative elements. So the other function that the immune system does for us, which is very interesting, is that it keeps record of those negative things that it has so far been able to deal with. And that's why you find that when you suffer from an illness and you overcome it, you realize that that illness no longer affects you the same way it was affecting you before you suffered from it, because the body essentially records the entire mechanism that it has used to fight that. And that is where the whole idea of vaccination comes from. Meaning the body will fight this incoming problem and defeat it. Then it will write the entire battle plan of what happened in order for me to defeat this, and records it, so that anything that resembles that comes, it does not go from zero. It simply refers to history, and it is able to very quickly defeat
Brother Mzadeh,
negative element.
You know, Allah, as we are talking about the miracles of Allah in His creation, I got this from a medic. He was telling us that you see the kind of virus that cause influenza and other things. So he was giving us an example to do with flu. That whenever you get flu, that is a new virus that has attacked you.
Exactly.
That a virus that has attacked you before can never come back and affect you.
No.
And it is really, some of us have been with the flu, at this stage for years and years, but you are getting new strains. So meaning that, just like you have explained, every other strain that comes, so the body builds the defense mechanism that it can never be affected by the same.
So you realize that when the things that are able to change very fast are the viruses, because technically, actually, viruses are not really living things. They are a confusing thing that is between a living thing and a dead thing. So what for it contains? It contains the material that is inside the living things. But for it's not a complete living thing.
So that's why we have mutations.
So it keeps changing very rapidly. And that's why we don't develop good immunity against viral diseases, because for it, even just mere temperature can change its structure. Even mere interaction. For example, you may have a different temperature of your body compared to mine. So if I have some flu, the specific flu that is within me is not 100% the same as what you have here. So if we interact, we again create now a third version that is the intermediate between these two. So in that case, therefore, you find that the body can't have a specific definition of what is this virus called flu and how do I fight it. That's why you find we never build any defense against it. Then, of course, we shall also look at some abnormalities that may occur in that system that is originally designed to protect you. Because as we are looking at it as a miracle, one may imagine that these are obvious things that are part of your body. No, it is not obvious. That the defense system you are having has a specific way in which it works. But in case you are unlucky enough to suffer from some of the abnormalities, you realize that it's a very big favor from Allah that He has given you that system. It protects you and it also works in the correct way. Because if it does not work in the correct way, the repercussions are again very terrible. Okay, so what are the parts that form? What are those elements that form our immune system? The very first ones, which are very common within our blood, are what are called white blood cells. Remember, they are the other opposite, or the others that carry blood, which we call the red blood cells. For them, they are essentially carriers. They just carry blood around. But these ones essentially work as defense cells. We shall look at what exactly has Allah assigned them to do and how do they operate. Then the other form of defense are what we call antibodies. Now here they give us in our graphic some of the various types of white blood cells. The viewer can be able to look at some of them. Of course, these are Latin terms which we don't want to go too much into. For us, what we want is just a generic picture of their cells. The cells are specialized and they do certain functions. For example, some of them are for killing bacteria. Some of them are for cleaning up the damaged cells, because as you live your life, you keep damaging and killing cells, so they need to be also removed. Otherwise, if we don't remove them, they become a problem. Then some, like the eosinophils, they are for killing parasites and also cancer cells, the cells that behave abnormally. Because remember that for the defense system to work, it needs to identify the friendly cells and separate them from the enemy or the foreign cells. And that's why cancer cells that behave abnormally can also be identified as non-friendly cells and they can be attacked. Although many times they are not very easy to differentiate from the normal ones, so people tend to develop all these symptoms that we are seeing. Antibodies, we shall look at them also in detail. Then we have what is called the lymphatic system, which I'll look at it. We are trying to avoid some of these technical terms just to give our day-to-day viewer a simple understanding of what is within you that helps you to survive. Then you have the bone marrows and the thymus, which was illustrated earlier on. So we can go and look at them one by one. We've seen that the white blood cells are the key players. They are essentially the soldiers. Just like you have the army, you have all this equipment, but ultimately you need that human being that will be able to operate. So they are the main part of our defense system, and they are made in the bone marrows and are part of what we call the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is something like the way you see blood moving around, but for it is mainly for that defensive purposes, as it were. They move through your body just like the way the red cells move through your body. Within your blood, they keep moving around. And what do? They look for things that are abnormal within the cells that they find in your body. So meaning they already know what are the normal cells that are expected in your body.
Just like you do the programming, you give the right picture, and then it has to be countered by anything that is altered.
Exactly. Just like for human beings, the soldiers put on uniform. The reason why they put on uniform, it should be simple to differentiate between a soldier of the national army and someone coming from outside. That's the whole purpose of those uniforms, and that's why the laws that are for protecting that uniform are very tight. You don't want a mix-up between the national army and people that are not necessarily part of it. So they identify bacteria. Those ones are living organisms, and bacteria diseases, those ones we develop immunity for them, because for them they don't change a lot. Then they also identify these nearly semi-non-living things that we call viruses. They also identify what we call parasites. Zayayub, what are parasites?
These are things from, if I'm recording from my biology or whatever, these are things that essentially really get benefit from us, but we don't get a reciprocal benefit from them.
Okay, meaning they are living things.
Yeah.
So are bacteria part of parasites, or for them they are not part of?
No, I think some of them they are, some are not, because essentially bacteria, they are some kind of bacteria that we need in the body, so they are good. But for parasites, it is one way. They just have to benefit from us, and we have no benefit from them.
But during that process of benefiting, they injure you, because if they were benefiting but they are not causing injury, it does not become something to worry. But as they consume of the resources of the body, they cause damage, and that's why we classify them as negative elements. So the white blood cells are also able to identify, because they can differentiate between the cells of the body and some of these other cells that are coming. Then they are also what we call fungi. Fungi, I think they are like plants essentially.
Yes, I think it is really to do with, you know, you think they kind of mutate so much also. They are more or less bacteria, but it is
Fungi.
it is a kind of plant kind of.
Okay, they are somehow plant related. So all those abnormal cells that come into your body, and some of them, now the parasites, maybe we need to differentiate a bit between these bacteria and the parasites in general. The parasites don't necessarily come to cause injury. For them, they just come to eat, just like the way we human beings eat other creatures. For us, our purpose is to survive. So essentially, we cut, we slaughter animals and we kill them, but for our own survival. Or the way a lion attacks a gazelle with all that force and creates a lot of issues. But the issue is, the parasite simply comes and its intention is just to feed. But during that process of feeding, it causes injury to you, so it also has to be attacked. But some of the bacteria may not necessarily be feeding off your body. But once they exist, they create all these poisonous byproducts that come just because of their existence, and you end up with a bit of a problem.
Barakallahu fiik, my brother Hamza. At that point, we shall have to go for a short commercial break. When we come back, I will be picking up right away from there, inshallah.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Fred! Fred!
Osmosis.
Freddy! Fred Dollar, my boss, CEO Inojo, the general of generals, the conqueror of conquerors, the first and the final, the sky above the skies, the promised land, the terms and the conditions, the international king crocodile, the source of the Nile.
Ero sina sente.
Mpora emitwala biri njera kujuzawo kaduka kange. The signs and symptoms of success, the back commander, not the back teller.
Lwaki okalubirizibwa okufuna looni ng'olina MTN Momo? Weesootinge! Kozesa Momo app oba star *555# okufuna looni ey'amangu. Londako looni ekukolera okuva mu looni ez'ebika eby'enjawulo eziva mu bannaffe be tukolagana nabo. Nga tuli wamu tewali kitulema.
Explore, enjoy, and dance to the latest content, beats, and kawozi from Uganda and beyond. Simply go to your Play Store or App Store right now, find Afro Mobile, download it straight to your phone, and get started. Is it TV you want? Simply open the app, click on TV, select the channel you want, and watch live. Are you busy right now? Then check out On Demand or enjoy in your free time. Afro Mobile. The future is now.
I'm one of the scientists now doing research on plastic technology recycling, where we can be able to produce other products from plastic waste. For example, we are trying to develop a plastic tile with sand, plastic tile, that it is unbreakable, it can be shifted from one roof to another. So this is a project we are working on. It's our initiative as Kazire Group of trying to reduce waste from the environment. Brothers and sisters, Taso Butonde for a better Uganda.
This message is brought to you by National Environment Management Authority, Kampala Capital City Authority, Vivo Energy, Airco, Pepsi, Stanbic Bank and NBS TV.
Uganda, a land bursting with culture and creativity, introduces an innovation for our times. Next Wowzy, a fusion of Next Media, Uganda's largest media network, and Wowzy, a leading influencer marketing platform. It's more than just a platform. It's a movement that bridges ambitious brands with vibrant content creators. Download the app today. Connect, create, influence.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Once again, dear viewer of Salam TV, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you back from that short commercial break. Just like I was saying, this program has been running for a number of months, and we have been able to cover a number of things, and you can see how interesting Allah has made his creation. So if you feel that it is kind of an interesting program, then there are a lot of things that you should have missed in the past programs, because we've been talking things to do with science, particularly in technology, things to do with the body system and the like, and they are quite kind of interesting programs, and just today is one of them. So if you have just been joining us this evening, you need to look out for whatever you have been able to miss, inshallah ta'ala. So Brother Hamza, we are still looking at the immune system of the body, and we have been able to try to handle. We got the definition, and we are at a point where we're looking at the constituents of the immune system of the body. And so far we have been able to look at something to do with the white blood cells and what it does exactly in the body. So we were looking at something to do with the fungi, and that's when we went for a short commercial break. I think we can pick up right out from there, inshallah.
Yeah, we had looked at the white blood cells, which we said are the initial soldiers that do the actual implementation of the defense infrastructure. And within the white blood cells, there are many types. There are B cells, there are T cells. So each of them are specialized for purposes of elimination of issues within our
the enemy, in quotes.
Then the other thing within our internal protection system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us are what we call antibodies. Now these antibodies are essentially generated by the body, and the purpose is to handle those poisonous substances that are produced by the other negative cells. For example,
foreign bodies.
The foreign bodies. The bacteria may produce some poisons due to their being around. So what the body does is to create a countermeasure. So in that case, you are able to deal with the poisons, because apart from the living organism itself, it again excretes, because just like you, a human being, when you eat, the next destination, you know it very well.
So it essentially it is producing what we would call an antidote for this.
So it creates an antidote against the poisons of that particular organism or that particular negative thing which is within your body. And that's why sometimes when they are doing testing for viruses, instead of hunting for the virus, which is hard, they instead hunt for the antibodies that are known to be particularly for that virus. So it is like saying, I want to see which area has riots in Kampala. So I have two options. Either I look for rioters or I look for the police. So wherever I find police, I know there are rioters there, because the police doesn't come except if there's a problem. So that's what these antibody testings do. So
actually, when they are running, is it called the complete body count? Usually, when they are interpreting, where they will see a lot of antibodies, they will. There is something. Yeah,
because the body is primarily expected to be quiet and not generating some of these defense antibodies. So that is another part. Then the other part is what we call the lymphatic system. Just like we have our circulatory system that distributes blood within our body, for purposes of defense of the body, there is a special network which is called the lymphatic system. What does it do for us? Number one, to manage the fluid levels within our bodies. Now, Brother Ayub, you know very well that our bodies are largely fluid.
Fluid, yes.
And that's why when a person is very thirsty and has taken a lot of time and has taken in water, their body begins to collapse. And you see the bones coming out, meaning without the fluids that we see in our bodies, then would not maintain this shape that appears very well that we can see here. So management of fluid, ensuring that the fluid level is optimal. We don't want too much and we don't want too small. And therefore, we encourage our viewers to always look at the issue of taking water, because your body is in need of water in order to manage a lot of
most of whatever a fluid has to be managed in the body. Most constituent is coming from water.
So if you don't take water because you think it is you don't enjoy it or etc., this is more of a medicine for you, so you take it as part of responsibility of maintaining your life. And for us Muslims, once you reach a level of even injuring yourself due to an action like that, you may even be facing condemnation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this body is given to you as amana. Essentially, you are responsible for keeping it for the whole of the time that Allah has given you.
Allah has, the Prophet has commanded us, la dharar wa la dharar.
So you don't injure yourself and you don't injure others. Then the other part of the other purpose is to react to bacteria. So whenever there is bacteria in the body, the lymphatic system will react to it. The other part is to deal with the cancer cells. Now you realize that some of these diseases are declared essentially as incurable, but our bodies have already existing natural ways of handling them, and possibly there is need to see how does it do it and how can it be enhanced. Because the human research against it has not essentially worked very much. Granted, there are interventions that we know that exist, which if used early enough, there's a high chance, but the interventions are more of the Russian style of dealing with a hostage situation. You simply come, you kill the hostage, the criminals, even if you kill some of the hostages. And that tactic is not a very promoted one. You don't say no. For example, there was one case where people, a group of Chechens took over a theater. Theater had around 400 people. So what the government did was to pump some dangerous opium-related material into the theater. The entire theater collapsed. People, they essentially went unconscious. So the security forces came in and they killed whoever they identified as one of the...
Maybe it is a script that
people
even the Jews really copy from the collective punishment.
So essentially, they made everyone unconscious using an opiate, some weird chemicals. Then they were able to identify who were here as terrorists. Then finally, when they tried to resuscitate people, over 100 had died. But for them, they looked at it that way. So that could be the way you would look at chemical-based therapy. You are essentially killing the cancers, although in the end you also cause some major damage to the body. But for as long as the cancer is finally out, you celebrate and forget all about it.
Yeah, it is.
Then the lymphatic system also deals with the byproducts, all the cell products that would otherwise cause a disease. Now you realize that we also have cells, just as we have these cells coming from bacteria and others. Even your body has cells, and those cells also produce chemicals that are dangerous to you. So the lymphatic system also handles those byproducts that come from our normal cells, which in case they are not handled would of course be having a lot of problems. Then it also handles the issue of absorbing fat. Now it means these fats that we praise a lot here in Uganda, so they look at it as some good thing, but it seems to be something considerably negative, because you can see there are many interventions within the body that are designed for ensuring that these fats are not accumulating too much within our body.
I think of course fats are of different kinds. There are those that are recommended to be in the body. You know, when the body is, when you have a lot of sugar, it is also, some of it is turned into glycogen and fats. So if somebody is falling short of sugars and so the body has to draw back from either the fats or the glycogen. So some of those are okay, but being in excess in the body is what is harmful too.
Then the other component of our defense system is what we call the spleen. Now that spleen is somewhere within your abdomen, and its purpose is to filter blood. What does it look for within your blood? One, those harmful bacteria that we've already seen, the spleen can filter them out. Then as the red blood cells move around, they get damaged or they get dead, they become totally invalid. The spleen is also responsible for extracting them. Now we should understand that if these things were left in your body, they would create a lot of chaos, even though originally they are part of your body and they have a function. But once they die, they become poisons and they have to be filtered out. And that is also another part of what the spleen does for us. And it also makes disease fighting components like the antibodies and etc. They also come from the spleen. Then the other part is what we call a bone marrow. Now you see within our bones there is that middle part which appears spongy, and that bone marrow is
very sweet if you are taking chicken or goat.
So that bone marrow is a producer of cells, a very important producer of cells, and that is something that we should be aware of. It produces both the red and also the white blood cells. Then there are also other defenses that the body has, like for example this skin of ours. This skin you see is also a defense. If we didn't have it, we would suffer a lot of problems. That's why you see when a person is an albino and they have a problem with the way their skin is formed, they tend to suffer a lot of injuries to the skin and sometimes even to the body, because the skin is not fulfilling the original design function for it. So this skin you see is waterproof. It also generates some oil that keeps our surface here a bit reasonable. Of course, we human beings add on
the vaccines and
the others just to like accelerate. But essentially, the body also has its own way of keeping itself sufficiently oiled in order to work well. Then the other defense comes from the lungs. In your lungs there is mucus. So that mucus there helps to pick out whatever foreign elements that could be within that tract. So you should be able to be protected by that. Then also in our digestive system we have mucus that contains antibodies, and it also has acid. You see, now if you look at there are a number of YouTube and TikTok videos where they scare you a lot by magnifying food products. For example, they could pick a banana and they make it like 100 times, and you see the entire thing is crawling with some very dangerous things. So they may even scare you into thinking that you have to keep washing whatever you are eating 100 times. No. Those things are natural and they are there, but the body has some very serious acid within your stomach that will simply destroy all of these things that you are seeing in that microscope. Then there are also other defenses like skin oil, saliva, tears. You see, when a small insect comes and falls into your eye, you can see that it does not come out and fly again, because the eye itself has those tears which also contain anti-infectant material there. So all those are things that Allah has packed within our bodies in order to keep them moving. Another interesting way in which our bodies respond is fever. Now, fever is looked at
as something negative, especially.
Negative. Yet it actually says that fever is actually supposed to be positive. Of course, it's a warning that there's an abnormality ongoing. But what the body does, it increases the temperature in order to destroy those
certain organisms.
Those organisms that can't live properly at those temperatures. So when you see yourself having a fever, you shouldn't look at it negatively. You should simply look at it as a warning, but know that the body is essentially fighting some negative elements.
Okay, thank you, Brother Hamza. I think from what we have seen, the body has really a kind of complex system. Because now from the setup of what we see in our countries, we see you know, the security bureaucracy having you know, the usual soldiers. We have those that are what we want to call people who are trying to get information, intelligence information from within the country, and those that operate from outside. But all this is supposed to ensure the safety of the country, and whatever we are seeing, you know, the bureaucracies in the country, they just have to copy from what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has already designed in our bodies. It is something quite amazing. You know, I think we are running short of time. Maybe we can.
So we are just going to look at some of the disorders.
The disorders,
because for our viewer, you should realize that ultimately we have seen these systems in our bodies, and Allah has created them and given them to us. But in order to show us what would happen in case these systems were not actually available, we simply look at scenarios of disorders where a person has a defense system but it is behaving abnormally. Once you look at these disorders, you will really appreciate that Allah has protected you by even giving you a well-functioning system.
To put the disorders in picture, it's like when you can have a defense bureaucracy that is well equipped, well facilitated, and all of a sudden you get a terrorist attack. So it bypasses all that kind of bureaucracy, and finally people get attacked.
In this case, actually, the disorders would be something like you are having policemen, but they are thieves. Meaning they were brought to protect the citizens. But again, they are using the very equipment that was given to them in order to carry out criminal activity. So that's what we look at here as disorders, meaning something that was originally designed to protect the body, but it is now again becoming a problem. It is either attacking the body or generating things that cause a negative effect. So the very first one of our abnormalities within our defense system are what we call allergy. So those allergies, things like swellings on your body, etc., they are part of those abnormalities that come, and they are all coming out of your defense system. So allergies can be for foods, for example. For a good number of years, I was not taking meat. The reason simply being the moment I would put any meat in my mouth and swallow, I would immediately begin to see things swelling around everywhere, and they are very painful. So I totally lost interest. But later, alhamdulillah, I was able to find moreover some herbal know, people have negative attitude. So it was a simple herbal medication that helped me. So you can have allergies against food. Many people have allergy against meat and also sometimes milk and some of these animal products. Meaning the moment you take it in, your defense system looks at it as a foreign thing that should be attacked.
Actually, allergies are very funny. It's a very funny thing because there are people who have some allergies to fumes, some allergies to weather. So, and it is something that is so hard to identify.
So it is important that one that develops these allergies, swellings and sometimes changes in the color of the skin, you should realize that there's something that has been misinterpreted by your defense system as a danger that should be attacked, and in the end it is attacking the body itself. In some cases there are medications. There are people who are allergic to sulfur, for example. There are many of them, and once they touch sulfur and put it into their bodies, Allahu Akbar. There's one elder of ours that we visited in the hospital. Allah, his entire body was just peeling off like the way a snake would be peeling off in order to create a new layer. And he was warned by the doctors, any other sulfur, you are going to die.
My goodness.
So they told him that. So he was given some sulfur containing medications by a nurse, yet he had even warned the nurse and said, Madam, make sure there is no sulfur. But in the end,
it's very interesting to, you know, there are people who are not even, they don't take even food that has onions. Things like those, as tiny as that, whenever somebody gets in contact with that,
then other allergies come from the sting of insects. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created these things in an interesting way. You will see that an insect is a small creature. So essentially it can't contain enough poison to injure you. So what has Allah done? He has instead made it to have just enough material to cause your body to injure you. Now, like for example, if a wasp comes and bites you, or
a bee or whatever,
it has very small material that it puts into you, but that material causes your body to react against you and fight.
Yeah.
So in the end, the body itself expands the damage.
Actually, there is a scenario that I got to learn about is to do with people who have over-immunity, if I may term that. So that a body comes to a level of self-destruction.
And they call it autoimmunity.
This is something weird.
So other allergies, we have sinus, you have asthma, and a good number of others. So all of these are scenarios where the defense system is available, but it is causing some abnormal behavior, and many of them are quite acute. If you find an asthmatic person, it's a small reduction in pressure, the person cannot breathe, and things become very difficult for the individual.
Yes, Brother Hamza, we have around 1 to 2 minutes at most, and we shall have to wind up at this point. Maybe we can pick up from there next week, inshallah, if Allah enables us to live up to that point. I think you can have your parting shots.
Okay. For our viewers, we were looking at the abnormalities that come into our defense system. Remember, we are looking at all of these things that are within our bodies, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us in Surah Al-Dhariyat, ayah 21, that wafi anfusikum afala tubsirun. So he's ordering us, look within yourself if you won't see enough signs that I have power and I should be worshipped. So that's why we look at these aspects. They are medical a bit, but we try to remove the medical terms and simply look at it in plain, simple language, so that everyone that has basic interest should be able to understand. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us knowledge, because knowledge is the lost property of the Muslim. Wherever you find it, make sure you acquire it, use it positively. Other civilizations are using knowledge just for human destruction and all other negative factors, yet we have an obligation to ensure that when we acquire knowledge, we use it positively, and this is one of the areas that we need to focus on. So next week, inshallah, we shall be continuing by looking at some of the additional anomalies we see in our defense system. Then we shall expand our program beyond that, inshallah.
Barakallahu fikum. Thank you, Brother Sekalima, for those kind of insights. I think we have really seen the kind of miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in our bodies, and the multi-systems that we have in the body. Just imagine that small body that you have, and it is having quite a number of systems within there. And one of those that you need to, before we get there, is the kind of septic tank that you move with, and nobody is able even to smell a fume from you that is bad, but just go and try to release yourself. You cannot be able even to take anything from that kind of area. So I mean, all these are things that we need to look at, ponder, and be able to appreciate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, get even to understand him better, and we get to performing ibadah. Perhaps maybe if we do that, by the time Allah calls us, we will be better people in his sight. With that, we shall have to end at that point. Until next time, subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Eno, yes.